Mary-Lucille introduces Wendi Forbes with an inspiring conversation of self-healing, changing the world with her joyful heart, offering her unique gifts to the planet. I'm up here in the Blue Mountains at a place called Lura. It's an amazingly sacred place, very spiritual place, and I'm about to have a conversation with Wendi Forbes, an amazing woman that I met on the weekend at Conscious Living Expo in Sydney. She has a very interesting story, so I look forward to having that conversation with her very shortly. Just take a look out here. It's pretty cold, pretty bleak. Let's hope we don't get washed out. So Wendi, I met you at Conscious Living this weekend in Sydney, opened a brochure at your stand and burst into tears, and I knew then immediately that that was the oil that I needed. It was the heart oil. Can you tell me how that came about?
Someone contacted me who had been raped and found that she was pregnant. She was wanting a massage, and I knew I couldn't refer her on to anyone else because of the dynamic of the conversation. So in preparing for the massage for this woman, I actually put together the mandala of heart oil, but I hadn't actually realised that that's what I was doing until afterwards. When I realised that what I'd made was a mandala, I was given a choice. If I chose to continue with this line of work, there would be 3 more, but that it required that I basically come out of hermitage and that I make them available to the world. The energy of the consciousness is imprinted into the physical form of the water, of the essence, of the oils. When you acknowledge that with intention and awareness, it amplifies it. So language reflects consciousness, the writing reflects consciousness, image reflects consciousness.
Tell us a bit about the other oils as well.
About the other oils. The heart oil actually embodies my heart healing energy that I've been using and developing since I was quite young. I knew it inside out and backwards, and it was what I wanted to offer the woman who was asking for a massage. The consecration oil embodies another level of spiritual action that I've been involved with and practicing since I was about 16, and that is the consecration, the acknowledgement of the truth of being. The peace oil was possibly one of the hardest mandala oils I've ever made because I was not by myself able to contain that, and I had a lot of assistance from other levels and other teachers. Just as I was putting it together, the September 11 tragedy occurred, and from that, after that event, peace oil then went directly into Belfast and directly onto New York. Each making of the mandala oil requires that I embody it, and before I can then begin to create essences that will hold it. To embody it is why it takes me about 3 years to make a mandala oil. It requires that I go into retreat. I've become aware of different plants or rocks or oils, willing to engage in the holding of that mandala pattern and store those essences until I make the mandala oil. Both the oil of lapis and the new dawn are mandalas that have been requested. All medicines spring from, in this traditional medicine, spring from the compassionate medicine Buddha. And so this mandala oil is very supportive of healers and any healing action within your own body. The great bodhisattvas of our world brought forth great shifts in consciousness and actually helps you link to those shifts in consciousness and ground your stability. The New Dawn oil was actually requested by my Japanese distributor, although what he requested was that I say something that would give the people in Japan hope after the last disaster in 2011. And when asked to say something that would then be published, I found that I didn't have the words I could offer in words. So I began the process of making a mandala oil. That mandala oil is based in the ability to give and receive compassion, and also the ability to stay connected to one's spiritual path, regardless of the environment that you're in. So the deep shock and grief and fear that arises from a situation where the earth under your feet does not behave in the way that you are used to often gives rise to a very deep post-traumatic stress, a very deep disconnection from the earth. How did I embody that trauma? It's not the trauma that I embody, but the state of consciousness that antidotes it. I did a Buddhist practice of Chen Rezik, the state of compassion, where I could then make the mandala oil. It's
the difference between the flower essences, the gems, and the mandala.
I noticed that energy imprinted into the water from the gems that I was cleaning, and began to research gem essences. An individual essence, whether it's made of a gem or a plant, or in relationship with an animal, or even in relationship with an environment, like a single note in an orchestra. The essence is made in direct relationship to a particular stone or a particular flower that is definitely connected to, if it's an amethyst, it's connected to all amethyst, but it's focused on the particular amethyst that's sitting in the bowl with the practitioner who's making the essence in the landscape of where the essence is being made. It carries us a fine, precise action of frequency and communication of that frequency. It reveals a particular facet of wisdom. It reveals a particular facet of our consciousness and what it's possible of. And so a gem essence or a flower essence is much more focused and precise. It's a tune that will go into an orchestra when it's built into a mandala. The logo of the hand carrying or offering the flame of light has actually developed in my mind from a very young age, an image that I've actually noticed in churches and the religious paintings of many different religions. It became a symbol for me of what I'm here to give and the focus of my life, which is to offer and to share the light and life that's present. The hand in a state of offering rather than in a state of giving or enacting in some way. It's really just an offering.
It's difficult to say it would be a business name, but it is a business in this reality as well as...
In this reality it is a business, yes, but Humanifest came out of training that I did. The use of the chant of Hu was very strong, and the linking between the Hu as an opening of the heart and Hu as the English word for colour and light. So Humanifest is a name that reflects light becoming matter as a spiritual catalyst in the world. The fact that in humanity, manifestation and the manifestation of light brings a joy that doesn't stop. And so the name itself reflects human festival, and a word formed out of many levels in the work that I do. The joy that springs from it, and the manifestation and the confirmation of the creators that I work with, the people as creators.
So it sounds a bit like your flower essence and gem essences are a part of something, the mandala is the whole, and hue, manifest, human, and fest are parts, and hue manifest is the whole.
Yes. Although the mandala oils are just a tool as well, in that they're a physical manifestation of a spiritual commitment to maintain a state of consciousness in the world.
What's normal about your life? Do you have a family, kids, a husband,
Yes,
a house?
I live in a house.
You don't live in the yurt?
I work in a yurt, I don't live in a yurt. I have a husband. We have a mortgage. That's normal. And I have a daughter, and I'm a grandmother. I have relationships with my family and my father and my brothers and sisters.
So even though you were a hermit, you still had some connection to the outside world.
Although my birth family, I had almost nothing to do with. I might have seen my brother maybe once or twice a year. For most of my life, I've had very little to do with my parents and my siblings, but that has been changing, and I'm learning that all things change. And yes.
Okay, so Wendy, you've had a few physical, you called it calamities in your life. Can you tell us a bit about the aphasic episode and explain what aphasia means?
Aphasia is, most people would have a connection with someone who has a stroke, who loses their abilities to speak. Then the damage to the speech centre in the brain brings about aphasia, which, unable to speak. I had a miscarriage, and 2 weeks after the miscarriage I had a neurological episode, but I probably had a grand mal seizure and was left without oxygen for close to 3 minutes. And so when I recovered consciousness, I didn't know who my husband was or my daughter. I didn't know who I was, and I could not speak properly, and I'd also lost the sense of time passing. So I couldn't project into the future or into the past, which makes speaking English quite difficult. So it was amusingly very much like being told, shut up, sit still and listen, because for 2 years that's all I could really do. Put a lot of effort into being present and still and listening, and gradually learning to speak again. I took up the playing of shakuhachi, the Zen flute, which throws the sound to the base of the skull and then into the brain, and increases the oxygen that your oxygen level. If I'm speaking grammatically correct, if I get very tired, I can actually start speaking. I think I'm speaking properly, but I've scrambled all of the letters and sounds across a sentence. So the only thing that I know about the fact that I'm not speaking properly is that the person in front of me looks very confused. And what's interesting about it is I started public speaking after I became aphasic, not before.
So how did all this fit in with your hermit life?
It was coming out of the aphasia that my life of hermitage just dissolved around me, whereas previously people didn't come to the house. They didn't require me to be social and to go out into the world. It was after the aphasia that I began to have requests to teach, and the process of making the mandala oils more generally available really began to step forward. It seems I have an unusual and deep connection with frequency and the acknowledgement that all form is emptiness, and all emptiness is form.
When at Conscious Living,
Yes.
you've never been to an expo before, is that
No,
right?
that's right.
So what made you come? How did you find out about it, or what made you come?
Patricia had been sending me information for about 15 years. And it was time. I guess one of the things I've been telling the people that assisted me, the students and my husband who assisted me, is that never before have I had the unconditional support of a group of people that would allow me to actually bring this work into the public eye cleanly. I have to give credit to the students that have come forward where they are happy to support unconditionally the process of this work in the world. And so I have at the moment distributors in Japan, Ireland, the eastern states of Australia and Western Australia who are committed to the work and to the mandala oils being made available and shared. Time for me to step forward and consolidate that for the Expo.
You run workshops as well?
Yes, I now run a series of workshops, and whilst each component stands alone, they do build to what I'm calling a Humanifest certificate, a practitioner certificate. So I always start with gem essences, and there's 2 gem essence workshops, Gems 1 and Gems 2, and a flower essence workshop, and an animal essence workshop, and each of those are one weekend. Then I also run a series of one-day workshops where people are supported in making essences as an act of interconnection to connect deeply with their relationship to the environment and the plants and minerals and animals that are constantly in our support. Animal essences are probably the most complex, or can be the most complex, of the as energetic structures of essences. And there are several different ways of making animal essences. Some people making animal essences channel the essence. Some people do it by becoming their relationship with that animal. The essences of animal essences that I'm making, some of them are actually made from substances that have come from the life of an animal. Things like natural pearls, the silk from a silkworm, and petrified coral. These things survive the life of the animal and are an outcome of their life. They can't really be called gems, and they can't really be called plants.
So what about a dog essence?
Well, I haven't made a dog essence, but I have made an essence in relationship with a tawny frogmouth. And in fact, that was actually a group of people who came together, and it's the first time I've ever worked in this way, where a group of people came forward asking for an essence to be made after a period of severe fire, bushfire, where a lot of damage had been done to ecosystems, but also a lot of loss of life in the animal life here in the mountains. And a group of people came together with very different skills and began meditating on which animal to support in the making of an essence, and it was unanimous that it was the tawny frogmouth. And very soon after that, a tawny frogmouth, a very old tawny frogmouth, was picked up distressed on one of the streets quite close to where we live and taken into an aviary of one of the people that was working with us. At one point, it was decided that we actually make an essence with the tawny frogmouth. The bird, which had been called Fern because it was discovered on Fern Street, had been too weak to come off its perch, and so a bowl of water was laid on the floor of the aviary, and the group of people meditated in the house When it was felt that the essence was completed, people came into the aviary to collect the water. The bird was completely spread-eagled over the bowl, completely covering the bowl with its body, and there was no other reason for the bird to be on the ground engaging with the bowl, because it doesn't drink water. It was also too weak to actually get itself back up onto the perch, so it had to be lifted back up onto the perch. Now, that particular essence is probably the most complex and acts on multiple levels and in different tangents to any essence that I've ever made before.
For more information about Wendi Forbes and her unique gifts and essences, please go to www.humanifest.com. How does it get any better than this? Show Up, Stand Out, brought to you with Mary-Lucille Baker.
And it was time.